We're excited to have so many counselors on this call and excited to be joined by an amazing group of admissions officers, experts in the space that are here to provide their expertise on this really great topic. At College Greenlight, certainly one of our roles is to close the information gap for students and for advisors as well. We think fly-in programs are tremendous opportunities. We really believe that getting to a college campus, experience life as a student, going to classes, walking around campus, meeting fellow classmates from across the country can be an amazing experience, a life-changing one. And so we're excited that all of you have joined us today to learn more about fly-in experiences. If you have questions as we go through this topic, please write into the question box that is part of your panel for GoToWebinar. This webinar will take about 60 minutes, combined presentation and questions and answers. And yeah, we're super excited to begin this and go over this topic in much more detail. Before we begin, I definitely want to take time to introduce our really great panel of college admissions officers that are here to share their expertise. I'm joined by Jameer Abney from Colgate, Amber Cooper from Washington and Lee University, and CJ Mathis from the University of Michigan. I'm going to give each of them an opportunity to introduce themselves in a much better way than I can. And so we'll go in the order that you see the pictures. So Jameer, can you go first and let everyone know about you?
Hey everybody, I'm Jameer Abney. I'm a Senior Assistant Dean of Admission at Colgate University. Glad to be able to be here with you and talk a little bit about fly-in programs. I had the pleasure at Colgate to actually lead the efforts for our fly-in, Colgate in Focus, which I'll talk a bit more about later. I've been with Colgate now for about 2 years, in the admission space for about 5 years, and really excited about some of the access work that we've been able to do on this campus since I've gotten there. So thanks for having me.
Hi, Amber.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Cooper. I'm an Assistant Director of Admissions at Washington and Lee. I oversee our fly-in programs, and I'm also our coordinator for a partnership with the Questbridge organization. I'm also an alumna of Washington and Lee 2012, and I've been here in the office since the summer of 2016.
Great. And CJ?
Hello, everyone. My name is CJ Mathis. I'm currently the Assistant Director for Outreach and Transfer Initiatives at the University of Michigan School of Business. Fly-in programs are relatively new to us, so my role is so I was the first person in my role. I've been in it about 2 years now, so I'm really excited about this opportunity. I'm a TRIO alum, so I know a lot of you work with students from like first generation low income backgrounds, so I'm very excited to offer these types of opportunities to the very high achieving students that you all work with in creating opportunities for access and success.
Great. Thank you all for sharing more information about you. This webinar is going to be run like a panel. We have the experts on the phone, and so me at College Greenlight, I'm not going to talk a lot, but what I'm going to do is ask our panelists a bunch of different questions. Some super easy, kind of, fly-in program 101. And then as we go on, we're going to go into some more in-depth questions. We really want you all to be experts in advising your students on how to participate in these wonderful opportunities. On the screen, you'll see some of the questions that will be asked. Definitely feel free, and we encourage you to ask questions into that chat box, into that question box, so that we can answer the individual questions that each of you have. So to start with, I would love each of our panelists to take a couple of minutes and talk about their institution and what makes your institution a great home for the students that we serve at College Greenlight. I'm going to go back in the same order. So Jameer, could you talk a little bit about Colgate?
Yes, so Colgate is a residential private liberal arts institution in upstate New York with just under 3,000 undergraduate students. We have 50 plus different majors, 10 additional minor opportunities for students, And one of the great things about Colgate is that our students come from everywhere. We have students representing 40 of the 50 states, over 70 countries. About 10% of our students are first generation, so first in their family to go to college. Over 40% of our students are receiving some form of need-based financial aid. And we're an institution that's able to meet 100% of demonstrated needs. So we've been able to provide significant resources for students and families to be able to make what on paper looks like a very expensive education affordable to them. And one of the things that we offer in terms of a community is a place that really wraps itself around students in a variety of different ways, from campus wellness services for social emotional support, over 200 clubs and organizations that meet a variety of different affinity and cultural backgrounds for students, and then also a place where the average class size is under 20 students. You're going to engage with their faculty, you're going to have those mentor relationships to provide you that one-to-one context and comfort to be able to build really sound relationships with people. And we're just coming off our commencement here, and talking to a lot of our students, the culmination of their experience speaks to the growth and development that they're able to have on campus, the leadership opportunities that are available to them, and lots of different ways that Colgate really inspires students to dream beyond what they think they might be able to do when they come in, whether it's traveling around the world, whether it's doing research, Division I sports on our campus that's available to students. Lots of different ways for you to find that community within community and find your niche, find the support that you need, find the opportunities that speak to you, and really truly allow you to grow as the person that you want to be.
Great, thanks for sharing. Amber, tell us about Washington and Lee.
Absolutely. So I'll start by saying, asking us to condense it into a few minutes when we usually love to talk and take hours is a task. But if Colgate is on your list or on your radar, on a student's radar, Washington and Lee should be as well, just in another region. So we are in the South, in Virginia, in rural Virginia, a small private liberal arts college with about 1,850 undergraduate students. We also have a law school there on campus, and we've got some programs and some minors that now bridge that gap, as well as accredited programs in business and journalism. We actually just received a huge gift from our alumni to expand our Office of Inclusion and Engagement, and so that's going to be a huge thing that's on our radar recently, and also looking at our institutional history. So I think students who are interested in being kind of on the forefront of watching a college make significant progress, as well as diving into that small liberal arts experience, a lot of the benefits of which Jameer already touched on, including the community inside and outside of the classroom, the close relationships with your students, and obviously the networking that's available too. For both of our institutions, the rural location does not prevent outreach and opportunity for any of our students. And so it'd be great to have us both on your list to just kind of dig into some of those things that make us a good fit for lots of different types of students.
Great. CJ, tell us about U of M.
Hi, I am here representing the University of Michigan School of Business, but I'll talk about the University of Michigan overall. I think I'm kind of a little bit of an outlier compared to my colleagues on the phone. We are a large public urban institution, housed seated here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So the overall population, we typically have about 40 to 50,000 students overall. That includes all of our graduate and professional students, but our freshman class typically ranges around about 6,500 students. We are the #1 public research institution, so students that have an interest in research, regardless of what area. So a lot of times students only think about research in the STEM fields, but we also kind of are leaders in the social sciences and humanities and liberal arts. So there's a variety of different opportunities for students to have research opportunities, even as undergraduate students beginning as early as their freshman year. I think we have over 200 different degree programs, a variety of different minors, and many of those academic departments are top ranked. So regardless of if a student is in a course in their major or whether they're taking kind of a liberal arts requirement, they are going to be with kind of the leading minds and scholars in the various fields. We also are, of course, very well known for our Division I sports. We do well in football, basketball, and a variety of other places, but it definitely is a large kind of school-spirited type feel. But there are a lot of different opportunities, such as the Michigan Living Learning Communities, such as our residential college or our Michigan Scholars Living Community, that provide many opportunities to make a large university feel small for students that are looking for that more intimate opportunity. So, go Blue.
Thank you, and I really appreciate all of you. I know that you could take, as Amber said, you could probably take an hour and talk about how great your school is. The topic today is fly-in programs, and so I guess just to get us started, Jameer, if you could just give us, like, I don't know, super high level, what is a fly-in program and what typically goes on during a fly-in? Not necessarily your specific program, but in general, when students and advisors think about fly-in programs, what does that mean?
So fly-in programs at 1,000-foot level are programs that have been designed in a lot of ways as access-oriented initiatives to be able to bring students from traditionally underrepresented communities in higher education to a campus to be able to have that in-person part of the community experience and give them the opportunity to be able to do things like visit a class, to actually meet professors, to stay on campus with a student and get an opportunity to decide, like, is this a place that would be a fit for me? And typically these are programs where we've invited students who wouldn't typically have maybe looked at a college like ours, or maybe are coming from communities that are underrepresented on our campuses. And so it's a great opportunity for us to do outreach and really think about diversity from a variety of different perspectives, whether it be first generation, race and ethnicity, income and socioeconomic diversity. So these are programs that are really pushing towards us being more engaged and thinking about social mobility and outreach and diversity and access, but also that opportunity as a student to be able to get to a campus that you might not have had the opportunity to visit, because typically these programs do provide some type of a resource financially to help you get to campus and allow you that opportunity to be able to see those things for yourself.
Amber, anything you'd like to add about what makes fly-in such a cool experience for students?
Yeah, I think what makes it such an awesome experience is you come away trying to answer the question, can I see myself here? You know, you get an opportunity to really envision yourself in those spaces while you're sitting in the classroom, while you are, eating lunch, if you get to have that opportunity in the dining hall while you're staying in a dorm. It's really your opportunity to kind of envision yourself and see your future there. And then in some ways kind of behave as if you're already there and see what you can get from that.
Great, thank you. Certainly people often ask, there are these amazing programs out there. Where can I find a list of colleges that offer fly-in programs? So certainly at College Greenlight, since we launched back in 2012, we've become known for our list of colleges that do offer fly-in programs. So there is a link that you see below. You can just Google College Greenlight and fly-in programs, and you'll see our list. I think right now we actually have 87 different colleges that have fly-in programs for students. Typically, there's a couple of different kinds of programs. Some are specifically for prospective students, and then many colleges will fly in students that are admitted to their campus as well. On our fly-in programs, it is restricted to those colleges that offer fly-ins for prospective students. So typically these will go take place during either the summer or fall of their senior year in high school. U of M's program actually is for rising juniors, and so we're excited to see some diversity of programs. So definitely check out our list. It's updated all the time, and so some programs, their applications are live and some are not. So we'll try to keep our program list up to date, so when applications go live, you'll see that. So then I'd love to give each of you an opportunity to talk about your individual program and what makes it so special. I think we're going to stick in the same order which we've started with. So maybe Jameer, could you talk more and talk about Colgate in Focus and let us know about that program?
Yes, so Colgate in Focus is our program that we've had now for about almost a decade. bringing prospective students to campus in the fall. And it's an opportunity for us where we're welcoming usually between 60 to 75 students coming from all over the country to be able to have that in-depth look at Colgate. And I think one of the things that makes our program truly unique is that we are able to bring students from everywhere. So the past 2 years, the most heavily represented states on campus have been Arizona and California. And so you have students coming from so far away. It's an opportunity to really allow them that chance to see, well, what does it look like to be a student at a liberal arts campus in rural New York? We've also been able to really focus in on key territory areas. I'm actually in Texas right now for an event. And so we've been able to focus in on areas like that where we've spent a lot of time traveling. So being able to bring students from these regions together to think about themselves as communities within the community. One of the other unique things we've been able to do is really bring our faculty into these experiences and not just have them be on panels, but actually lead class sessions and lead opportunities to talk about the research that they do and the mentorship that they provide for students. And then, of course, I think one of the biggest keys is getting to stay overnight and be hosted by a current student, and that opportunity to kind of walk their life in the day of a student who's from a similar demographic or background or part of the country, and being able to have an opportunity to see, well, what is it like for them to live here at Colgate? And one of the big hallmarks that we try to have at each of these programs every year is a closed door, students only panel where students can ask the questions about what it's like to be a student who's a first-gen student, a student who's from a geographic region that's really unique, a student who's from a different racial and ethnic background, and what are the challenges that exist for you as you come to a campus in rural New York in a predominantly white institution. And so making sure we provide that space for students to feel like they're getting real, authentic, honest answers, and not just the answers from us as admission officers that they might feel like have been rehearsed or practiced or aren't the real identity and ideas of what it's like to be a student on our campus.
Great. And Jameer, a quick follow-up question for you. I see on our screen that the application, there's a priority deadline of June 3rd. What is the priority application? What does that deadline mean?
So one of the things that we did this year is actually the first year we've offered the priority deadline, is really wanting to encourage and push students to apply early before they get into the summer months and don't have the access to a counselor and don't have the access to the resources to get a transcript or other materials that they might need as part of the application, but also an opportunity for students who are truly interested to stand out and raise their hand in the process and say, hey, I really want to come to your program. And so it's an opportunity for us to be able to selectively look at those students who have applied early, who have let us know that they want to be here, and to be able to give them that information earlier, but also in the spirit of access, really trying to push students to get those applications to us sooner so that they don't run into middle of the summer, no access to their counselor, no access to those resources to be able to actually apply. And then they're waiting till right at the beginning of their senior year where there's so many other things going on that they're maybe not able to get in that application if they're actually interested in coming to our program.
Great. Thanks for answering that question. CJ, I guess this time you're next. Tell us about your program. We're super excited that U of M, this is the first time you're ever offering a fly-in program, so tell us about the All Access Weekend.
Cool. So this will actually be the second year that we've offered All Access Weekend. One of the unique things, particularly about this our program, is it really is focused on students who are interested in studying business. So while there will be some exposure to kind of general University of Michigan aspects and different campus partners and student life overall, a good portion of it is really going to be focused on kind of what opportunities for studying business look like here at the Ross School of Business. We, like you said, we're unique in the fact that we offer this opportunity for rising juniors. We do accept applications from everyone, but our target audience is rising juniors just because we really want to connect with these students in their junior year in hopes that we will kind of have an opportunity to continue conversations as they explore their different college options so that they can have time to prepare to be a competitive applicant come the fall of their senior year. So the University of Michigan can sometimes have a very complex application process, particularly applying for admission to the business school. And so we want to make sure that we continue conversations with those students through our student ambassadors and myself. So as students begin preparing their application, they have that feedback that they need. So students come here, they get to spend time here, they get campus tours similar to how they do all across other diversity fly-in programs. I would say another unique thing that I think I'd like to be transparent with any audience about is that because of legislation here in Michigan, we can't make admissions decisions or program admission decisions based on race or ethnicity or gender. But however, we can consider students' contribution to diversity. And so it's definitely our goals in this program is to consider first-gen status, low-income status, and also students that would contribute to the diversity of our overall class. So that's kind of All Access Weekend in a nutshell.
And we're really excited that the deadline as listed is May 24th, but for all of you on this call and for the Green Lake community, the application deadline has been extended for a couple of weeks to June 7th. So CJ, thank you for that. And Amber, I love the name of your program, the DIVE program. Let us know more about that.
Yeah, so fun fact I just want to throw out, the person who actually came up with this acronym is on the call on the other side of the desk. So shout out to him. He knows who he is. He's been texting me. But the DIVE program actually happens twice in the fall. And at our program, we try to tailor this experience as much as possible. And we're actually going through kind of a program revamp for the upcoming fall program. So generally it was class visits, so we get the opportunity to have the academic and intellectual piece on display, along with faculty and student panels that talk about classroom life, as well as social options and activities and discussions about that. What we realized is that we were trying to squeeze too much information into small discussions, and so throughout the application and registration process, we're getting feedback from students about what they're most interested in hearing about from Washington and Lee, and then tailoring our programming to that. So there will be some things that are coordinated ahead of time, things that we know should be included on a campus visit. And then as we continue on with the application and registration process, we'll start tailoring some of those group discussions, panels, however we're going to compose those based on what the students are directly interested in order that the student will leave the fly-in having gotten information that was not just important to us, but most relevant to them, and not feeling like we need to have a blanket statement for all students or really trying to get into those niche areas.
Is there a difference between Dive 1 and Dive 2?
There is not a difference. It's just a matter of volume. We want to get as many students to campus as possible. So we have the capacity to bring about 70 to 80 students for each of those programs.
That's great. And so I guess Amber, you just answered that. You were the last to present, so maybe I'll ask you this question: what do you see as the sort of the key benefits to students attending fly-in programs? Yeah,
so I think from an admissions perspective, relationship building is a really, really huge part of this process. And for most of our applicants, they don't get an opportunity to visit campus. So I think the benefit of attending one is that you get to see, touch, hear, feel the campus with your own eyes and hearing it from a very authentic, as Jameer was saying earlier, authentic student perspective, because what you may get from not visiting campus is the communications and the brochures and things like that come directly from the admissions folks. So the benefit of attending a program is that you can ask more questions directly. You can move around on that campus. You can move around in the town that it's located in, ask more questions about what it's like to live there, and then be able to take back that experience to help make a lot of your decisions. And I guess Jameer, does attending a fly-in, does it help in the admissions process?
Well, it really depends, I think, on the admissions office and what they utilize as part of the process. So institutions that take into account demonstrated interest, definitely attending their fly-in is going to be that much more beneficial. But I think for any school, that opportunity, as Amber just alluded to, when you think about relationship building, is important. Even if it's not a school that's actually tracking that that attendance or tracking your engagement, that opportunity to have met a professor, to build a relationship with a particular student or leaders on campus, or even just your personal admission officer, is a great opportunity for you to be able to stand out in the process, especially at schools like ours, where we're also reading the application. And so that opportunity to say, oh, I remember that student. I saw them on campus. I remember their energy and their spirit. Those things are really, really valuable, because while we are really trying to be as objective as we can through this process, we're human too. And I think those relationships really come into account when we're thinking about the makeup of our institutions, especially at a small school like Colgate, and knowing what that individual student can bring to the campus and what type of impact that they might have, because we've actually seen them here. I think it's definitely really valuable. And also, it's a great opportunity for you to be able to add just another piece in the context of your application, and another thing that we can think about in understanding how you're going to be successful once you get to our campus, in addition to a transcript, a test score, those letters of recommendation, and other paper pieces that we'll see when we review your actual application during that part of the process.
Okay. I know, CJ, you don't know yet about the data, if it helps in the process. Amber, have you seen good results from students that do attend the fly-in terms of how they do through the application process at Washington and Lee?
Yeah, we have seen a lot of positive results from that, and I think it starts with the way we select our students, because we want to be able to bring students to campus who would thrive at Washington and Lee. So we start with that mindset in the beginning, and then it's the post-dive, post-fly-in interactions that we find very, very important, because a student can ultimately decide, that it wasn't a great fit, but we want to keep that relationship alive. So the ways to communicate with students afterward, having their hosts remain in touch, all those different kind of things we find important, especially once the fly-in is over.
Okay. So you'll see on our fly-in program list that there are more than 80 colleges that have programs. Certainly, just as we want students to add a balanced list of colleges to their consideration set when they're applying in general, we want to also provide students with tools to understand those colleges that have fly-ins and how they might match or fit a given student. So definitely, your students can use College Greenlight to identify which schools might be a good match for them academically using our What Are My Chances tool or our scattergrams. There's a lot of other data on our website. It could be our fit meter that takes into account what a student is looking for in a college and how well colleges align with that, plus a lot of other data around graduation rates and net price. So we definitely encourage students to do their research ahead of applying for specific fly-in programs. I guess I'd love to hear from each of you which types of students would be the best fits for your individual programs. Maybe CJ, if you can go first. What types of students would be the right match for U of M's program?
So definitely I think, University of Michigan, as I'm sure many people know, is a highly selective institution. So we really are looking for those students who are high achieving, intellectually motivated. The one thing that I do encourage students to think about, particularly when they are coming from like underrepresented areas or high schools, is to understand that students are always evaluated within the context of their high school. So, students will always look at like average SAT and ACT scores and GPAs and things like that. But I don't want students to kind of be discouraged by that number. Now, I think similar to how Amber was talking, we definitely have, obligation to make sure that the students that we are admitting are going to be successful here academically. And so, we are looking at GPAs, we are looking at test scores, but however, just those things alone is not what we're looking at. I mean, also for our particular diverse fly-in program, we're looking for students specifically interested in studying in business. Like, they don't have to be 100% sure, but having some inkling that they may want to explore different areas, whether that be finance, entrepreneurship, marketing, management, consulting. There's a variety of different ways, and we want to kind of help them explore those different areas to see if it would be a good fit. But we also want to make sure that if a student comes to campus, that they're not bored because they want to study nursing and they spent all day in the business school. So those would be the things that I think would stand out for the students that we're looking for in our program.
Jameer, which would be the best, I guess, what's the right fit for Colgate, those considering your program?
I think obviously students who are interested in a small liberal arts environment, community, in terms of an academic experience, or students who aren't familiar with that but want to explore what that means. Obviously, students who are coming from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds, first generation, low income, racial and ethnic groups that are underrepresented in higher education are going to be who we communicate with. And also those students who are just intellectually curious and who have pushed themselves and challenged themselves and thought about their academic experience outside the box. And definitely, I think, CJ, your point about not just relying on what those average numbers look like in some of our profile pieces, but thinking about yourself and how you view yourself as a scholar, I think is very important in this process, because it's up to us in the process of our application review to really determine, are you someone that we can see being successful here? And that doesn't always look the same. And what I always encourage students when I talk about our programs and admissions process in general is that excellence comes in a variety of packages. And it's our job, and really my team, the multicultural recruitment team, to really push for what excellence looks like and how that can sometimes be different than what traditionally people might think of in terms of excellence. But that doesn't mean that you're not a stellar student and scholar, even if you don't look on paper like other people do.
And Amber, as an alum, you could definitely speak to the experience at WNL. So what makes I guess, a good fit for WNL?
Yeah, so I think at WNL, and like some other liberal arts colleges, we are looking for students who have that broad-minded approach to their education, who are interested in exploring a lot of different things and innovating, but also being in a rural location impacts people a lot differently. So folks who can be creative with that aspect of their time at Washington and Lee in particular. But we also look at, character and integrity of our students for a couple of reasons. One being that we have a very strong culture of student self-governance on our campus, and they're very much involved in the ways the campus is moving forward. I mentioned some of those initiatives earlier, looking at our history, our relationship with our greater community around Washington and Lee. Students are involved and extremely influential in those, and they oversee a part of our campus that is kind of the thread of life, which is our honor system. And so that's based on leadership, civility, integrity, and respect. And it's overseen by students who are elected by their peers, as well as the Student Judicial Council. So those are just some of the examples and the ways that we encourage students to interact with Washington and Lee in a way that builds leadership capacity, not just in title, but in the ways they take on and take ownership of their student experience.
Great. And so students, they have identified the schools that they want to apply to, and now they're starting the application process. What tips do you have for a fly-in application, and is there anything different that students should do on their fly-in applications versus like the general admissions application? I guess Amber, you first.
I wouldn't say there's necessarily anything different to do because we're looking for authenticity in both places. There are often fly-in applications that will have like a short answer question. And while they seem like things you can get done quickly, I would advise students to be as thoughtful in that short answer question as they would be in a long form essay for a college application. We still want to get to know your personality, so you don't have to try to, force a story or tell us what you think we want to hear. But just being just as thoughtful, I think, is the number one piece of advice that I could offer.
Okay, and I'm assuming at WNL and other schools that there's like a different reading process. Is that right?
You said different reading process?
Yes. Like I'm assuming you like, is it a small team that actually does the read?
Oh, well, we're a small office, so everyone does. Everyone who's an experienced reader does the reading for those. Yeah.
Okay. Jameer, what tips do you have for students in the application process?
I think I'd echo a lot of what Amber has said in terms of making sure you're authentic, making sure you're thoughtful. But I think throughout either process, ask questions is what I would say, and make sure that you're understanding what's being asked of you to be able to present the best face as you're going through this application, whether it's the shorter form application for a fly-in or the larger admissions application. And then I think also not only just being thoughtful about the fact that you're really wanting to be authentic, but be thoughtful about the fact in a lot of cases this is your first impression. If you've never visited before, if you've never sent us anything in previous years, this is your opportunity to make that great first impression and to be able to really rubber stamp who you are to an admission office. And this is an opportunity for you to make that impression that's going to be lasting if you do decide that this is a place that you eventually want to apply to. Because we're reaching out to you because we already are interested in you and see something there. And this is your opportunity to make that impression about what you see in us as well. And this could be the beginning of a very good relationship if you really do take the time and really are authentic in telling that story and answering the questions and giving us that best kind of first face that we're going to see from you. So definitely be thoughtful about that as well when you're going through the process.
And CJ, anything to add about tips for students?
I would just say, like I said, because we have a particular interest, a focus on business, I would say kind of weaving in that piece. The tip that I always give students is one, not to tell us things that we already know. So we know we're a top ranked program. We know kind of average salaries of our graduates. We want to learn about you. So we don't want you to just regurgitate facts about, our institution. We really want to learn more about you. And then secondly, I think in regards to like activities and involvement or extracurricular activities, a lot of times students only think about those things in the traditional sense. So students may think, if they're not president of the student government or something like that, that the things that they are doing outside of the classroom may not be valuable. But we very much value if a student has a part-time job, if a student maybe volunteers with their faith-based organization. Those are all things that students are committed to, and we want to know about those things both on your application for the fly-in program and for our admissions process.
So our audience, the audience on this call are primarily counselors across the country, access advisors, school counselors. How can the people on this call, how can the counselor community best support students through the application process? Is there a letter of recommendation? How else can they advocate for their students? Jameer, want to take that?
I think I know you mentioned the list to be able to see what plans are out there, but being very, again, thoughtful about which programs they're encouraging their students to apply to and helping them as they begin to think about their college lists through this process, and making sure they're going to the types of programs that are at the types of schools that are going to be the places that they eventually plan to apply, so that they're getting the most out of the time that they're going to be spending, especially if they're traveling far distances. I think counselors can be very helpful there. For our program, we don't require a letter of recommendation in this particular application, but for those short answer questions or an essay, review those and make sure students are putting their best foot forward and the stories that they're telling, and they're making sure that they're making a really good impression, whether it's just grammar things or syntax and just kind of putting the sentence structure together correctly, or asking them, is this truly the story that you want to tell? Is this how you want to introduce yourself? And I think if you have those close relationships with your students, that's an opportunity there to really help them through this particular process and thinking about, well, what is the mission of this particular program? And is what you're telling the admission office, does it fit what they're asking from you, or does it fit the particular focus of the program that they're inviting you to be a part of?
And Amber, does your program require a letter of recommendation? And if it does not, can counselors still submit one?
Yes, so our program does not require a letter of recommendation. However, as we open up the application, which will be on Thursday, we also offer an opportunity for counselors to nominate students to be invited to apply for the fly-in. And within the counselor nomination form, which we'll be able to send back around to folks who are on this call, you can also leave a personal note in that form. So you can, greet your student and let them know why you've recommended this program. And then you're also still welcome to communicate with us as well. We get to see that personal note that you leave behind, but you're also welcome to follow up with an admissions counselor just so that we're aware that your student is applying. And we'll stay in touch throughout the application process as well. So especially on the far end when students are admitted or they enroll, we link back up and remind that it was our fly-in program that made that possible.
Actually, Jameer, a quick question back to you. You said that you don't require a letter of recommendation. Can counselors still submit one?
In this case, we wouldn't be asking them to, but definitely they always have the opportunity to advocate for their students, to reach out to us personally. Very similarly, if you're wanting to connect with the regional admission officer, or myself as the person who's kind of the lead planner for this particular program, then of course, like part of our role is to build those relationships with our counselors, just like we do with students. So we always want to hear from counselors, especially if there are really unique circumstances or something that they feel like we need to know about a particular student to be able to most effectively evaluate their application or help them through the process of getting to campus, et cetera. I think those things are important. So definitely counselors, if you have questions or you have something that you feel like we should know, feel free to reach out, let us know, whether it's myself or the regional admission officer for your area. We definitely want to hear from you in this process as well.
Okay. And so students have applied, and I guess some will not be accepted. For students who do not get accepted to your program, what does that mean as far as applying for admissions? CJ, any thoughts?
I would tell students not to be discouraged. So our program is still fairly small. We only select 24 students each year to come to campus, because we do fly both the student and up to 2 parents and guardians to campus. And so I think last year we had about 70 to 80 applications for those 24 spots. So that doesn't mean that a student will not be admitted. I always offer myself as kind of a direct contact. And so if a student isn't admitted and is still interested, I'm always willing to work with a student individually to kind of discuss our admissions process, to talk about the feasibility or their admissibility realistically in our process. But I definitely don't want students to be discouraged if they're not offered admission to the fly-in program.
And I guess, Amber, same question to you. What if students don't get accepted?
It's basically the same. We make it clear in our email communications that not being admitted is not an admission decision, and it doesn't impact how we evaluate your application. So thankfully, we still have students who aren't invited to the fly-in program to apply. And again, it's often a matter of space and availability, because we only have the capacity for that 70 to 80 students. So as much as we love to have even more on campus, our current students might riot and tear down the admissions office if we overload them with folks. So we definitely encourage students to stay in touch, even if they aren't invited to the fly-in program.
CJ, now students that have been accepted, the good news. Students have been accepted. What tips do you have on preparing to attend a fly-in?
One of the things I would say is do weather checks of the area you're going to. What we try to do is we send kind of a suggested packing list. So like last year, the majority of our students came from Dallas, Texas, and they were coming to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and the weather can be very different here. And so we just always want to make sure that students are prepared, because I'm from the South originally, but I married a woman from Michigan, and I came up here in June, and all I packed was shorts, and I had to go to Walmart and buy sweatpants and sweatshirts the first year we were married. So just making sure that you are comfortable. I would say, again, comfortable walking shoes, because you're probably going to be going a lot of different places. You want to have an umbrella, because you never know when there's going to be rain. But also just coming with questions, coming with an open mind, regardless of what you may have heard about whatever institution you're going to or traveling to. Just coming in, having that open mind, asking questions, because just as much as you think that, you know, they're looking at you and seeing how you're approaching their institution, you know, you're also interviewing them to see if it's going to be a good fit for you. So making sure that you're asking the right questions of students, faculty, and staff to make sure that it's going to be a place that make you feel like you're at home for those 4 years and beyond.
Jameer, what tips do you have for your students that are attending at Colgate?
Well, whatever the communication medium has been, whether it's email, text, social media, whatever, make sure you continue to check that. I think one of the things that I always run into with any kind of programming on campus, we invite students, we're emailing them, we're communicating, and people show up and it's like, oh, you didn't tell me that. And it's like, no, we sent you this information. But make sure you're continuing to check whatever the medium was that is the primary medium to communicate out, so that you get those updates that CJ is talking about, that you are getting a sense of what we're telling you should pack. And also, again, I go back to I said earlier, ask questions. If you're not sure about something or you're uncertain about what that's going to look like, reach out ahead of time so that you don't show up and you're without something that you're going to need. I think also prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for what you're going to see. Like, this may be very different from what your current environment is like, and be open to that. I think especially you come to a rural location like ours, and you may have never seen this many trees or livestock or deer or what have you. And those are things that you will experience on our campus. And just be open to that, because these aren't maybe the typical environments that you're used to, but that doesn't mean they can't be a good fit for you. And so I always encourage students to come with an open heart, an open mind, and make sure that you're willing to really look at the place as a place and figure out, is this somewhere where you could see yourself? Because I think that's part of this experience, is we're bringing you here for you to define and figure out, is this a place that you could see yourself thriving and really growing in your college experience?
And Amber, what tips do you have for students to make, I guess, the experience the best possible?
I would say before you arrive on campus, over-communicate if you're having any kind of challenges, or if you foresee any challenges with travel, with being able to get to an airport, all of those kinds of things, because what we want you to know is that we want you here. That's why we invited you. So we will try to make as many accommodations as possible to get you there. We've had students who their parents couldn't get them to the airport, so we arranged for them an Uber, all these different kinds of things. And over-communicate to your folks, your parents, your family, whoever is looking out for you, and making sure you get to us safely. Sometimes we have students who go through the whole process. Right before we start arranging their flight, we find out their parents had no idea they'd even applied for a fly-in program. So over-communicating those kinds of things. And then just, being aware, being mindful of yourself while you're here on campus. Like CJ was saying, there's us evaluating you. I don't want to say watching you. We have other things to do during the fly-in program, but also making sure you're getting your questions answered too, and get your forms in on time. We do have forms that help us verify that a parent or guardian is aware of your travel, and that you're aware of our policies, all kinds of things. And so, as much as we can get those in on time, the better we can move forward.
Great. So, thank you all for answering all those questions. I know our audience has asked a bunch of questions, and we're going to get to those in a minute. Just definitely another sort of plug for College Greenlight. If you guys have any questions about Greenlight, if you need any additional support from us, from our team, let us know. If you want us to do a team training over the summer or back to school in the fall, let us know. You can contact me in the chat box, or you can always write us at info@collegegreenlight.com. I'm going to ask for help with these questions, and we've received several. I think Brittany's going to help out. You can't see her, but she's going to help me with the questions. So panelists, please be ready.
All right, the first question is, what support or resources are advised for fly-in programs for undocumented students?
And any of the panelists can take that.
I can start with our program. So we don't actually ask that information anywhere in the application or things like that. Sometimes it is shared with us by the students, but it typically comes up in the context of traveling, particularly for the fly-in program. And so we always have a staff member on hand at the arriving airport if any student is experiencing travel along the way, as well as emergency contacts for me, the rest of our staff, and our travel agent. And being able to communicate with parents as well. We haven't had any issues so far with any undocumented students being unable to travel, but once we know that information, programmatically, if they want to make that kind of connection, they want to know what supportive resources there are, we get them in touch with those folks on our campus ahead of time, so that by the time they get to campus, that's a community that they can be already welcomed in once they get to campus, so they don't have to feel like they have to reveal that information to anyone other than us at that point, so that we can go ahead and make that connection already happen before they even arrive to campus.
Jameer, are undocumented students eligible to apply for your fly-in?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, they would be eligible as long as they're living within the 50 United States. We haven't had many for our fly-in program. We've actually seen more of this for one of our programs that we do in the spring because we do have another like open house type of program for admitted students that we do. Very similar to what Amber said, we try to protect that information as much as possible in terms of like who is getting that information and who we're sharing it with. Also, there are points of contact, including myself, and then we always have staff on call during the travel days when students are arriving, working with our travel agency to be able to have points of contact to be able to call, as well as having people available on campus to be able to respond if needed through our Office of International Student Services, through one of our scholar program offices, our first gen program office here on campus, as well as the admission office. We've created a team of folks to be able to feel comfortable with all the way up to the president's office to be able to respond if needed and get the necessary resource, even if it includes legal advice that students and families may need. So we've really tried to effectively create a team, a small kind of tight-knit group of people that are understanding of what the policies are right now, who to contact, and how to be able to best protect student information, but also be able to engage them if they are interested and willing to travel to campus to make sure that we're able to get them here safely.
And CJ, same question for you.
Yeah, similar thing. Because our program is so new, we haven't run into the issue of undocumented students. We did have undocumented students who had undocumented parents last year. And since our program does fly in both the students and the parents, we work individually with those students. So I know one of our students traveled with other family members that were more comfortable with traveling. We did have one student that decided not to come because they didn't want to travel without their parents. So we definitely work very individually with students. We have resources on campus. There's a student organization that's very active. We have a website with kind of all of the contacts and resources that are available for undocumented students. They're absolutely eligible, but we do understand that the travel can be a complex situation to navigate for each individual student.
Next question. For students who are from rural communities, do they fit within the diverse category?
I guess Amber, you first.
I would say yes, especially because we're in a rural community, so it will behoove us not to isolate that community from being able to attend our fly-in program. I will say, full disclosure, that we try to look for where that intersects with some of the other target market and categories that we're trying to reach in terms of socioeconomic diversity, ethnic diversity, being the first-year family to go to college, and those kinds of things. But we are also looking for rural students. The other challenge we may face, though, when it comes to rural students is their travel and getting them to campus. So sometimes that means for us we got to go through a couple of hoops, whether it's arranging a ride to an airport to then get on your flight, or arranging some other mode of travel in order to get to campus, or reimbursing or providing funds for a parent to be able to drive that student to campus. Typically for us, that's been regional, so students are fairly within driving distance, but from rural areas have still been able to make it to the fly-in program. But case-by-case basis, we'll do what we need to get them here.
Jameer?
I would echo a lot of what Amber said there. We definitely don't want to discriminate against our friends from rural areas being in a rural area, but definitely thinking about the intersection, I think, of those identities and also the ways that students are able to effectively talk about how their environment and being from a rural community really engages with the idea of access. I think how students talk about their location and how that maybe disadvantages them is really important, because just to be in a rural community on its own doesn't necessarily get us to the hurdle of, okay, well, how has this disadvantaged you in other ways? And so being able to speak to that. But also, I think, again, the travel piece of it can be definitely challenging. But we are going to, if we're going to invite you, take the steps necessarily to get you to campus. So I definitely would say we do encourage that, and that's something we have looked at and trying to understand how students' location can be a particular challenge for them. But having a student be able to speak to that is going to help us in understanding and evaluating their application that much better and thinking about how they fit within the spirit of the program.
Great. And CJ?
Absolutely. So one of the areas, like I mentioned earlier, we look in all kind of geographic underrepresented areas. So even if a student, we don't get a lot of students from rural areas. We typically get big pockets of students from like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, areas like that. So if a student is coming from a rural area, even if that's within state, we definitely look at that because we find that very valuable to the overall diversity of our class.
Great. A follow-up question. As a college counselor, do you recommend that I utilize an income or an EFC cutoff for people I recommend for your fly-in program? Do you all have any income cutoffs?
I guess Amber?
No, we don't really have any income cutoffs. I would say, though, for our school in particular, we have something called the W&L Promise, which says that students coming from households which make $100,000 or less will pay $0 for tuition. So you could use that as your own cutoff in terms of students who would not be paying tuition at the least for their time at W&L. But otherwise, we don't look for that as evaluative necessarily in the fly-in application. But you're welcome to use that on your end to recommend this to students.
Jameer?
Similarly, I would say we don't have a particular income cutoff, but one of the things our board just approved, actually in this session over the last month, was a new no loan policy for financial aid. Any family $125,000 or less will be packaged without any loans as a part of their financial aid. So that's a new thing that we're rolling out this year, and still looking at some of the specifics of what that looks like. But we're really excited about how that's going to change some of our financial aid and being able to work with students who come from more what we would call kind of middle income families to be able to afford this type of an education and receive some of the great grant funding that Colgate is able to offer as a school that meets 100% of need. Also, I would encourage counselors to work with their students and families to utilize either a net price calculator or what we have, the My Intuition calculator, and get a sense of where they might fall in terms of financial aid on the campuses. And that might give them an idea of, okay, do I fit in this band of kind of lower income or middle income tier? But I think that 125 number, 125,000 number, or looking at what you would receive in terms of the calculators, those might be valuable tools. But one of the things that we do for our fly-in program is while we are offering resources financially for families to be able to travel to campus, we ask students to contribute a number in dollars that their family would feel comfortable with. And so that can be very different depending upon what the family situation may be. And so there are families who are contributing all of their costs to travel to campus because they feel like they have the means to do that, and families where that looks like $20. And so really that gives us the opportunity to invite students who are from these different demographics, even if they do have maybe more means to be able to get themselves to campus, because that doesn't take away from your diverse identity just because your family has been able to come into more significant means. We're just offering you that opportunity to be able to say, okay, this is what we feel comfortable with. And while we have some sense of different families' financial backgrounds, we're asking you to tell us, what do you feel comfortable with?
We're definitely running out of time, so I'm going to have one more question for our panelists.
Okay, great. So this is a combination of several questions. So as fly-ins become more competitive, counselors are noticing that the students who are accepted are more geared towards high-achieving GPAs. How can counselors or students find fly-in programs for middle-of-the-pack students? The second question is, what grades or ACT, SAT scores do you all consider when identifying the students you will be admitting?
I guess Amber?
CJ.
Oh,
CJ, I'm going to have you answer.
CJ, I'm sorry, CJ.
So I would say I think the tool that Jonathan talked about earlier in regards to college fit. So I think at institutions where they are more selective, I think the students with the higher GPAs probably are more likely to be invited to campus, because I think when we're investing in these students, we want to make sure that they are a good fit academically for our institution. So I would say for those students who have kind of more of that middle or more average grades, they should look at institutions on their list. And I've kind of looked through the list, and I know that there are a variety of institutions on there that aren't as nearly as selective, that will offer an opportunity for them to visit campus and from a variety of different aspects. And I would say specifically for us, generally, I think for a student, particularly in high school, we don't have a minimum GPA, but I would say to be competitive in our process, they're probably going to need to be at about a 3.5 or higher. We have flown students in with a little bit less than that, but we want to be very upfront and transparent with students. So we want students who are coming to the fly-in program to be admissible, because we don't want them to come to campus, get really excited about being here, and then know that we can't ethically offer them admission. And so I would just say using the resources that are available to find institutions where they think they would be a good match, and then selecting those institutions strategically.
Amber, I'm sorry I cut you off before.
No worries at all. So we don't have necessarily test score or GPA cutoffs. You're welcome to look at our admitted student profile, but considering that we do a holistic admissions review, we like to consider every single piece of that student's application for the fly-in program. So that's on us to be able to get as much information as possible within that application, quantitative as well as qualitative. Also considering the academic information that we're going to get is contextual. So, and the fact that fly-in applicants, this is not the entire applicant pool. And so we try to make wise decisions at that point. And it's essentially why we say that your invitation or not to the fly-in does not, it's not an admission decision, because it's just not the same kind of evaluation, because it's based on some other factors. So I would say for those middle of the pack kids, keep an eye to different school profiles. If they do a holistic admission review and you feel like in ways qualitatively that student is a great fit for that school, by all means encourage them to apply. Just keep their expectations realistic. And also just understanding that things can change over time, and we understand that. So you may be middle of the pack now and then have a great rest of your junior and senior year and look a little bit differently. So just keeping those kinds of things in mind.
Jameer?
I think I'd echo a lot of what CJ and Amber have said. I think one of the things that's also important is thinking about, if it's an institution where you've had students apply from previously, what does that history look like? Who have typically been the students that have been admitted in terms of academic profile, extracurricular profile, et cetera. And if you have a student that, again, you feel like is a good fit and is truly stellar in other ways, this is where that advocacy as a counselor, I think, is very important. And this is also where those conversations about realistic expectations and also the breadth and depth of what a college list looks like is very important. But also, this is an opportunity for you to advocate for your student, but also if we can build that relationship for us to be able to advocate for them as well. That's part of our job as admission officers in the process.
Great, and definitely part of our job at College Greenlight is helping colleges and advisors connect to form those relationships. So definitely you and the advising community, please reach out to the Greenlight team. We're here to support your efforts in building relationships with admissions officers. Let us know those colleges that you want to connect with, and we're here to support those efforts because those relationships can be really invaluable in getting great outcomes for your students. So you'll see on your screen, again, where you can find the College Greenlight list of fly-in programs. So definitely take a look at that list. Thanks, CJ. There are a variety of schools on that list, so definitely, hopefully there are colleges out there that would be good fits for your students. We've definitely gone over time, so I definitely want to thank our panel. I'm going to give each of you, I don't know, another 15, 20 seconds to say goodbye to our audience and any last words. Amber, let you go first.
Any last words? We'll be sending you guys the counselor nomination form very soon. And also I'm saying hello to Nate Hayes from Kit Delta in Arkansas.
Oh, awesome. CJ?
I want students just to be encouraged to apply. So I try to consider myself a resource, even if a student isn't a good fit for the University of Michigan or the Ross School of Business. I'm still, like, part of what we do at our fly-in program is we talk about fit, and so we tell students to kind of consider all of these things as they're making their college decisions. So I just want to serve as a resource. And if there's somebody from Arkansas, that's where I'm from. So you work with one of my best friends down there in Helena.
Great. Jameer?
I second that, what CJ just said. I'm always here as a resource to be able to help students along the path, even if that doesn't lead to Colgate. One last thing I did want to mention, our fly-in application is currently open, but also this fall we'll be welcoming Anthony Jack, the author of the book The Privileged Poor, who's been making his tour around the country over the last several months to campus during this time. And we will be inviting all of the students who are on campus for the fly-in to be able to hear his lecture to the campus community. So another great reason, if you're looking to come visit, to come and check us out, because you get to hear from Tony Jack. So cool thing to be able to look out for as well.
Great. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Jameer. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Greenlight community. We're at the end of May. Finish the year strong. And please reach out to any of us if you guys need additional support. And we really appreciate you taking more than an hour of your day to be with us. Thank you all.